Our exploit is DistCC, which stands for Distributed C Compiler and is a type of remote command execution identified in one of the Metasploit modules. Before we get started with the demo exploit, here's a brief history. DistCC is a tool used to speed up compiling code by distributing it across multiple machines. It was commonly used in older Linux systems and developer environments, but unfortunately, it was left open without proper access control. This vulnerability was publicly disclosed around 2002 and was later added to Metasploit by the open source security community. What it does is simple but dangerous. It allows an attacker to send shell commands to a remote server without authentication. That server is running a misconfigured instance of DistCC. Mitigation is fairly straightforward. Users can disable firewalls, especially port 3632, which is the default port for DistCC daemon. Never expose development tools like DistCC to public networks, or better yet, uninstall it completely unless absolutely necessary. How the exploit works. We first verified the target machine was running and that port 3632 was open using Nmap. Next, we then located the DistCC Exploit module inside Metasploit, and then we set the R host to our target's IP and the L host to Cali's IP. This allowed the reverse shell to connect back. Finally, we ran the exploit. If successful, we received the command shell from the target, allowing us to run commands like who am I, ID, uname to confirm system access.
During this demo, we learned and executed some technical steps that included several technical elements that are relevant to penetration testing and exploit development. For example, the use of the Metasploit framework to launch a real world exploit module, the execution of unauthenticated remote command execution against a misconfigured service, configuration of virtual environments and setting up networks in those virtual environments, in this case, VirtualBox, manually configuring IPs and validations of connectivity between attacker and target VMs, the successful establishment of reverse shell from the target system back to the attacking machine. On top of that, session management through Metasploit using session verification of shell ownerships, and post exploit interaction using commands like who am I, you name, and others.
Originally, we planned to demonstrate the Bluekeep Windows 7 RDP exploit, but we ran into several challenges. First, we had to track down an old Windows 7 ISO that still allowed vulnerable RDP versions, and that took some time because newer ISOs had already been patched. Next, we had to use a physical DVD to install Windows 7 in VirtualBox, which wasn't straightforward. We had to dig up older external DVD readers and tweak virtualization settings. After all that, we ran into compatibility issues. After setting everything up, we realized that the premium version of Windows 7 wasn't vulnerable to Bluekeep, which is frustrating. At that point, we pivoted to a more stable and documented exploit, DistCC. This turned out to be a blessing in disguise because Metasploit 2 had already had it enabled. It allowed us to focus more on demonstrating the exploit rather than troubling OS installs. Our final takeaway was that this exploit is a great example of why old development tools can still pose critical vulnerabilities when left misconfigured. We were able to prove that an attacker can execute remote commands on a system without needing a password or prior access, and often that's all an attacker needs to get started.